Down the barrel of a wild electoral year that is 2024, featuring a presidential primary in March, a general election in November, as well as a U.S. Senate election, and maybe $800 million in political ad spending between now and November. And joining us to talk about this is Adrian Fontes, the Secretary of State of Arizona. It's good to see you again.
Good to see you.
Yeah, okay,
Maybe $800 million? It's going to be more than that.
Yeah, I think the estimate as of a couple months ago was $821 million. But that's not just the spending that comes in on the campaigns. That's outside spending as well.
It's going to feel like more than that.
I'm glad I'm not running this cycle.
Okay, so this is interesting. You found yourself recently in an awkward position for a Democrat defending Donald Trump's right to be on the ballot in Arizona before that case got dismissed last week in federal court. Did any of your fellow Democrats send you any nasty messages saying, "Why are you doing this"?
I got a couple of grumps, some sneers, a harumph here and there, some crossed arms and stern looks. No, I mean, look, I got elected to follow the law. I'm following the law. Arizona's statutes are very clear. If a candidate is qualified in 2 other states and applies here, the secretary is directed to put them on the ballot. So I did what the law requires me to do, regardless of my politics or my feelings, because I got hired to follow the law, not to push things one direction or another, and that was what we're doing.
Just a follow-up to that, there were more than one tries to keep him off the ballot. And what was the main reason for it?
Well, the main reason I think behind this is Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, which ostensibly prevents individuals who were involved in an insurrection against the Constitution of the United States or rebellion against the Constitution. And that was the foundation of which. But I think a lot of those lawsuits forget that we also have to follow state law. They forget the Article 4 full faith and credit clause, and they also forget Section 1 of the 14th Amendment, which is the privileges and immunities clause. So when you take that whole soup and you smash it together and you give it to your lawyers and they say, you got to follow the law, boss, I follow the law. That's the way it works.
And what other lawsuits are floating around out there right now?
Oh, man, how much time you got? We've got one in what we call Mi Familia Vota versus kind of everybody, case number 1 through 8. There are 8 different cases. These trials have ended. We're waiting for a ruling from Judge Bolton, I think, on 1 through 7. The 8th one is still floating out there. We still have the case of Mr. Fincham versus myself from our contest. That's up on appeal. The lawyer tried to get out of that one just yesterday. The court told him, no, you got to stay on the case, even though they've already been sanctioned for this. There are several other bits of election litigation from 2022. I think there might be 1 or 2 still from 2020. I mean, this is just like, it's like a Tolkien book. There's these never-ending sagas that just keep going and going and going.
Yeah. Hopefully with a happy ending.
Hopefully not hobbits running for office.
I mean, look, so far we're everything for zero, right? We've won everything because none of these claims are real. None of the issues that people have been claiming are real, right? They're like, oh, we've got all these problems. And this is the analogy that I make to people now, right? They say, well, we've got a problem. Well, what's the problem? I can't pick up the box. Why? Is your arm broken? No, because the box is in the other room. Well, that's not a problem. You're making up a problem. There is no problem. You can pick up the box if you just walked over there. So that really is the entire conspiracy theories, election lies, all this election enthusiasm, I like to kindly put it. And slowly but surely we're putting it to bed. People are coming to their senses. And I hope the fever will break before November.
Your office doesn't run elections. That's the job of the counties. But do you have any idea what is going to be different in next year's elections in Arizona?
Well, we've done a whole bunch of different things. We've enhanced the training for election officers to be certified through the Secretary of State's office. That certification has been ongoing. We're going to be asking the legislature to allow me to certify officers in even-numbered years as well during this legislative session, because we've got a lot of new officers, as you know, in Arizona. We want to get them certified before November. We've enhanced the election procedures manual. We've taken out a bunch of stuff that doesn't have to do with elections. It's more like candidates campaigning, sort of the non-election administration stuff. So that is moving through its final phases of editing between the governor's office and the attorney general's office and my office right now. We've got, we're going to have new election warehouses in Coconino County. Pinal County has been busting their tails to get their new warehouse up and running. God willing, and the creek don't rise. That'll be ready sometime midsummer for the August primary and so forth. So there's a lot of things: physical infrastructure, physical security, tech security, procedurally. We're really kind of cleaning it up. And here's the thing: we're doing it as effectively as can be done because we finally have a Secretary of State who has been at the county.
Right, you were a county recorder, and then you were an assistant county recorder as well.
Right, I was the chief deputy for Recorder Gaceres Kelly down in Tucson after I left Maricopa County, and that experience in Maricopa and then down in Pima County, and the other folks we've brought in. I've got our election director was not just a lawyer in Maricopa, but also in Pima and in Pinal and Yavapai. We've got the former election director from Cochise County as the deputy state election director. So we've got a team at the Secretary of State's office that's more experienced than any team has ever been assembled, and we are out there in the counties really doing everything we can to funnel resources, funnel time and energy, improve training, and do everything we can to help the counties.
That is Adrian Fontes. He's Secretary of State for Arizona. We're talking about 2024 and that crazy election year that is yet to come. And continuing our conversation with Adrian Fontes, Secretary of State, about what next year's elections will be like. You told me, though, via text that Arizona's in danger of losing our 11 electoral votes. That's how we decide who the president will be. What's that all about?
Well, the legislature reduced the threshold for a recount in not the last legislative session, but the one before, from 0.2% to 0.5%.
Uh-huh.
And what ends up happening then is if we can't process at the counties our votes quickly enough to be able to get our certification done at the state, we miss the safe harbor day in Washington, D.C. under the new Electoral College Act, and we might not be able to seat our electors. But it looks like the governor and the legislature are working with the counties to try to figure out a solution to this. There may very well be a special session early in the year. I'm hoping we can get this thing fixed quickly, and I hope we do it in a special session so that the rules will apply, because if we wait through the whole session, we've got to wait till it's valid 90 days afterwards, and then it's just too late. So this is something that we've been looking ahead towards. Election administrators, we look at the calendar going out a year and a half, 2 years to make sure everything's good to go. We've got to deal with this right away.
I appreciate the positive attitude, but seriously, are you worried about this?
I am. If I wouldn't be talking about it if I wasn't worried about it. So we've got to solve the problem. I'm not willing to sacrifice any of the curing period because that penalizes voters. Right. This should not be a penalty on voters. This should be something where we compress the activities in the counties. We compress the activity in my office. I'm willing to give up at least a couple of days worth of kind of calculating stuff and do it more quickly and demand more of my staff. But we should not penalize voters because of a change made by the legislature, the reduction in the standard for recounts.
All right. We have about a minute left here. You told me there's a very important deadline coming up Monday, and it involves the presidential preference primary ballot.
Well, it's not a deadline. It's the big start of the season, right? The presidential preference election is March 19th. By the way, only registered Democrats and only registered Republicans can vote. Independents are not allowed to vote in the March 19th presidential preference election. That's
not taking it personally, but
got to be clear. Yeah. That's just the way the rules are. And on Monday, we will be drawing the names to establish the order on the ballot. And so we're going to be doing that in the old Senate chambers at the old state capitol building there at the museum. We should be live broadcasting it somewhere. Check the website, azsos.gov. But that's when we will find out what order the candidates' names appear on the Democratic and the Republican presidential preference election ballot. Let me repeat this because it's important. If you are not registered with one of the two parties in this election, you are not eligible to vote. Those are the rules in Arizona. You don't have to like it. I don't like it, but that's the rules. And if you'd like to participate, please change your voter registration. You can always change it back later if you don't like being identified with one of the parties. But if you want to participate, you've got to be registered either as a D or as an R for the March 19th presidential preference election.
Okay, thanks a lot, Adrian Fontes, for stopping by this morning.
Thanks for watching. Click to see more from Arizona's Morning News and tap the button in the middle to subscribe.